record. Okay, go.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sean Roberts. I'm the Director of Marketing for Jigsaw Trading, and we are very happy to have Richard Freisen today doing a presentation, which I think everyone will get a lot out of. And it's basically talking about replacing persistent trading mistakes with intentional behaviors. Richard works with financial professionals and companies who want to improve the value they add to the world by increasing their personal effectiveness. His neuroscience-based mind muscles model gives his clients the opportunity to reach their goals with simulations, interactive exercises, and real-time decision processes. He has built and sold a retail business, an options trading firm, a financial software company, and is the inventor of 7 significant financial software patents. For 2 decades, he yelled and screamed in the futures pit in Chicago and the options pit in San Francisco. Rich holds a BA in philosophy and a master's degree in clinical psychology, along with certification in Gestalt therapy and neuro-linguistic programming. His goal today is to reframe how you think about trading behaviors and to stimulate your own creative brain. So without further ado, here is Mr. Richard.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it, Sean. And again, interrupt me with any questions. And if you've just joined me, feel free to go to the Q&A box and ask any questions to interrupt. And Sean, if they're appropriate, you can just bring them right on at any time.
Sounds good.
Okay, so first I want to start with a story about a tall, skinny philosophy major who walked onto the floor of the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. With only the experience of being a futures broker working for Merrill Lynch, that philosophy major was given a badge and put in the middle of the S&P futures pit. He looked around. He saw the energy, the millions of dollars whizzing back and forth with just hand signals, and knew he had found his home. His job was to trade S&P futures to hedge option delta risk for a privately held options trading firm. John, do you want to mute yourself there? And let's see if that brings down some background noise.
Yes.
Okay, much better. Thank you.
Okay.
And that's right. Me, Richard Freisen, my very first time I walked onto a trading floor was not as a clerk learning to trade, but as a trader. I'd been hired by Chicago Research and Trading, founded by my college buddy, Joe Ritchie. You can read about Joe in the New Markets Wizard book. But for me, it wasn't a quick trip to the bank. My first trainer in the S&P options pit said these words, "Rich, you are the worst trainee I have ever had." As I tell the story about myself, I can still hear his voice as clear as I can hear mine now. Here I was in the heart of billions of dollars of money flowing back and forth, and I was so close, so close. And to hear these words just crushed my hopes and dreams. And this feeling may be familiar to some of you also. Well, I managed to survive that withering criticism, and I opened a trading operation for CRT on the options floor of the Pacific Exchange. There, I was determined to let nothing stop me. For 3 years, I kept notes of everything I noticed, both in myself and other traders. I kept these notes on a 3x6 trading cards, and I kept them in my jacket pocket, and you can see them inside the yellow circle here. I journaled almost everything of significance. This stack of cards, almost a foot high, eventually turned into a trading manual that I used to train my own traders in my own firm, Trade Management, LLC. That manual has now evolved into the Mind Muscles for Traders program. The structure of this webinar and all our online lessons have the same 3 sections, and that is the warm-up, the workout, and the win in the world. The warm-up section is designed for our neocortex, the conscious, rational thinking part of our brain. We help you reframe your approach to problems so that they can be solved. This gives you the power to get out of your rut and create new ways of thinking that support long-term solutions. Now, let's dive right into a sample warm-up. Are you ready? Okay. If you recognize any one or more of these states, welcome to the club. And what I want you to do is type into the Q&A window any of these issues or other ones that negatively impact your profits. making impulse trades, missed trades, over trading, repeating the same errors, stress, fear of loss, jumping from system to system, not disciplined, letting big losses run, feeling stuck, fear of failure, cutting your winners short, lack of confidence, ruled by emotion, afraid to lose money, afraid to pull the trigger, self-sabotage. So type into the Q&A box which of these issues, or if it's a different issue, are holding you back from the profits you want. And Sean, if you see anything come up, that is, maybe you can give me a summary or know what you're seeing.
I think everyone is, people are saying all of the above. A lot of these I think resonate with them. Letting big losses run, self-sabotage, impulse tradings, feeling stuck, afraid to pull the trigger. Yeah, I think a lot of people have, if not most, all of these issues.
Yeah, we have done over 1,000 trader personality assessments and surveys, and as a result, I have not seen anything new in a while. And there's a reason for this, and we're going to go into it. But now let's look at the other side of the ledger. If you recognize any of these goals or desired outcomes, welcome to the road of trading mastery. Now, I want you to type into the Q&A window any of these or other desired outcomes that really matter to you. Enjoying the power of discipline, self-mastery, enjoying the challenge, cutting losses and letting profits run, trade with focus and flow, feeling joyful trading, in trading, increasing size with comfort, consistently profitable, becoming a professional, set free from financial worries, managing risks successfully, calm and relaxed, loving the challenge, the joy of discipline, executing my strategy, financial freedom, self-confidence, real-time self-awareness, and feeling great trading along with persistence and resilience. Again, which two or three or one of these would really make a difference to you and your life, and or any others that would make a difference? And Sean, you can let me know what's coming up.
I think everyone is pretty much on the same page that all of the above is really nice. I see self-mastery is another one. Trading with focus and flow, consistently profitable is another big one. Getting rid of fear.
Great. Okay. So, hang on. So the question is, how do we get from here, or how do we get from here, which is the original issues that we want to solve, to here, which is what we really want? Well, what the question really for me is, what mechanisms drive the repeated behaviors, and what mechanisms create the behaviors you want? Well, it turns out that you're not alone. Mind Muscles Academy, as I mentioned, we've surveyed and tested over 1,000 professional and independent traders. And these are traders who are determined to get to their goal of consistent profitability. The results of these assessments and surveys are consistent with my own experience as a floor trader, my floor trading team, and my professional trader coaching clients. The repeated trading behaviors that cost us big money are rooted in subconscious neural patterns that sabotage our profits. Why do most of us traders repeat the same patterns? Well, it turns out that we all operate with the same human brain with its systemic limitations. The holy grail of trading is not a magic bullet. It is hiding in plain sight, right in between your ears. It was when I realized that persistent trading mistakes could be managed that I shifted from a volatile equity curve to a consistently profitable equity curve. So let's look at some ways that our work together today can make a difference from you. Now, the next point I'm going to make is the most simple, yet the most critical precept for changing persistent trading errors. And when I say this, you're going to go, duh. But this, if we realize this, it's going to make a big change. So are you ready? Okay, here we go. We all know what to do, but we keep repeating the same costly behaviors over and over again. Now, I'm going to give you the secret key to creating consistent profits, but you have to promise you'll never tell this to any traders outside of Jigsaw trading, okay? Everybody agree? Are you ready? Okay, let's write it down. You can't get to the goal of consistently increasing profits without changing persistent trading behaviors. Now, I want to let this soak in, because if you understand this point, your path to trading mastery has just become a lot easier. To change your profits, you need to change your trading behaviors. To change your profits, you need to change your trading behaviors. You must end the persistent trading mistakes, period. If you disagree, type into the chat box. So if you disagree or don't get this point, because I'm going to build on it for the rest of the webinar, type into the chat box and Sean will let me know if anybody disagrees.
Doesn't look like it.
Okay, well, good. We're going to build on this. Okay.
One question. It's not about a new strategy.
Go ahead.
Herman was asking, so it's not about a new strategy then?
Right.
Okay.
We can shift from strategy to strategy if we keep the same trading behaviors. It's like the abusive guy who goes from girlfriend to girlfriend and thinking the next girl is going to be the one, and he doesn't change his behavior. So, yeah, okay, but that's the whole girlfriend thing. That's another subject. We won't go there.
Okay.
Okay, so if this is the case, we can start working on the right problem. Now, progress will be made if we stop working on the wrong hard problem and cooperate with our brain to start working on the right hard problem. So our continual work as traders is constantly building positive, new trading behaviors. Our goal is to become experts in our internal processes so that we can create better behaviors. Now, if this is our goal, we can ask a very important question. How does this happen? The Academy's mission is to give you the experience of new trading behaviors that serve you better. In fact, I'm going to go a step further and say the main job of a trader is constantly creating the ability to adapt trading behaviors. So I'm going to pause for a moment and see if there are any comments, or Sean, if you have any comments about this, and feel free again to challenge anything I'm saying.
Okay. I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't see any questions from the audience.
Okay, and remember, feel free to challenge me. That's where really some of the good work in these webinars come from.
Okay.
The traditional advice for behavioral change is to be more disciplined. This is kind of like a track coach telling a sprinter to run faster.
It's not that easy.
You know what to do, right? But sometimes it feels so hard to break old habits that no longer serve you. You may find yourself repeating costly trading behaviors over and over again. So this is the result of building a two-story nut house in your brain. The top story is our conscious, rational, and analytic part of ourselves. The bottom story is our impulsive, animal, and emotional part of ourselves. The goal of the top story is to subdue the bottom story. However, the bottom story is connected to our limbic brain, which is part of our survival instincts. And the top story will lose the battle most of the time. Without our emotional brain, we can't make decisions or discover patterns. Our conscious brain does not have enough bandwidth to what we need to do as traders. So maybe, just maybe, what we have been told isn't using the right model. So I'd like to talk a bit about how our brain does work. Why are persistent trading behaviors so persistent? The answer is located in the brain we inherited from distant ancestors. Now, I'm going to go into some detail here about the neuroscience of our brain, but I want you to stay with me. I know traders, they just want to get to how can I make more money? But many studies show that when people understand the process of synaptic change in the brain, new behaviors that serve them better are created more easily. One study in particular looked at two groups engaged in the same brain exercise. One group was taught how the brain changed on a synaptic level. The other wasn't. The group that understood how the exercises built new neural connections achieved better results in less time. So do you remember your first attempt at driving? You have to concentrate on everything at once. But now you can drive on a crowded freeway and have a conversation with a passenger at the same time. Well, how does your brain do this? Well, it turns out that neurons that fire together wire together. And this means the neurons that firing at the same time create complex neural connections. And without this feature, our brain would have to invent everything from scratch every time. So every time you started the car, you'd have to learn how to drive all over again. But by repeating firing the set of neurons at the same time, complex neural connections are created. The more times these connections are used, the more automated they feel and require less conscious attention. Now, if you visualize your repeated trading behaviors as well-formed neural circuits, you can now start solving the problem on the real level rather than the imagined two-story nut house. You can stop beating yourself up.
So this is something that would be, I guess harder at first, but you're saying eventually becomes almost like second nature.
That's correct. So if we understand, and we're going to do a couple of exercises in a bit, that just teach us what it feels like to form new neural connections. And you're absolutely right. In trading behaviors, we repeat the same errors. We have the old neural connections that are firing. And what at the Academy, what we call these well-formed neural pathways are NEMS, or neural metastructures, NEMES. And these drive persistent trading mistakes that are fired with the same rapidity as the NEMS that make life possible. Now, some NEMS come with our brain, such as the startle reflex or reaction to stakes. Other NEMS we create ourselves when we were younger to help us survive. These self-generated NEMS were created when we were dependent and our grasp of reality was limited. These NEMS represented the best options available at that time. And the earlier they were created, the greater the survival threat that stimulated their birth, the deeper their pattern is rooted in our lives. The NEMS then replicate and apply themselves to many areas of our identity and behaviors as we grow up. They shape the information we retain, which supports our existing beliefs. They also trigger repeated behaviors that may no longer be useful to us. Because NEMS are so integrated into our neurological fabric, we experience NEMS not as brain processes, but as indistinguishable from our very identity. In your training at the Mind Muscles Academy, you will start to experience NEM activity as an optional process. Now, I'm going to see if I can get this video going here. PowerPoint isn't good at doing videos. Whoop. I may have just blown PowerPoint. No, it's back. Oh, there it seems to be going. Okay, this video shows neurons in time-lapse photography making and breaking neural connections. The value of watching this video is to give your mind a new model for how your brain works. This model is critical to making the changes you want. You're watching neural plasticity in the raw. The good news is that because of neural plasticity, we can now create new neural patterns. When done intentionally, we call these mind muscles. Mind muscles serve us better than the original automated neural pathways that we want to replace. And now this is the core of the Mind Muscles training in the course Mind Muscles for Traders. We create simulations that build new intentional mind muscles that feel better in the moment, are aligned with our values, and get us to our goals. Repeating the same trading behaviors produces the same trading results. New intentional trading behaviors move us to trading mastery. Now, if you can visualize new behaviors as neurons reaching out and connecting, it makes the job of changing a lot easier. Okay, any comments, Sean?
One question. So if we change trading behaviors, how do we manage those when under stress? I.e. trades they're going against you, and the bad habits will come back.
Boy, that is an excellent question, because what happens is even when we create new behaviors, the old nemes, the old neural patterns are still there. We all know that. We all know that, when you've stopped drinking or smoking, you get into the right situation and boom, the old behaviors are triggered. So we're going to talk about interrupting old patterns in just a little bit. In fact, we're going to give you a visceral experience of interrupting old patterns. So great question.
Okay.
So in fact, let me give you a story. In fact, I'll give you a story about interrupting patterns. When I first started to ride a Harley V-Rod, I had nemes that didn't serve me well. For example, one day I came around a corner and a semi-truck had crossed over the line into my lane. What did I do? I stared at the Mac emblem on the radiator.
Holy cow.
Yeah, I was fixated. Now, Sean, do you ride a motorcycle?
No, I'm a bit afraid of them too, to be honest.
Good, excellent. Well, now a motorcycle, as some of you may know, tends to go in the direction you're looking. So my instinct was to stare at the danger, which created more danger. And I needed to change that. Needless to say, I survived that. So I practiced for 2 months and I played with pretend scenarios while riding, always looking at the safe or the escape route, not the danger. My brain wanted me to look at the danger, but after 2 months, my reactions became automated. Now when threatened, I immediately look at the safest spot, not the danger. And by the way, this is a great metaphor for the rest of our lives. So even in stressful stations, the brain can reshape itself.
We have one question. Jack is saying that actually his understanding of neuroplasticity is that the old connections die off. This, per the books, rewires your brain. So I guess the question is about the old memes and how they do they die off ever, or?
Yeah, well, what happens is they slowly become disconnected and slowly become harder and harder to connect. But under some situations, with the right stimulation, the old memes can come right out. We don't have time, but I could give you some really embarrassing examples in my life of things that I thought I was over about my brother, who is a very difficult person to be with, in my opinion. I thought I had gone to the higher plane, but boy, he still could trigger some very old memes that I hadn't used in a while. So we'll talk, if we have time, we're going to talk about how to handle that.
Okay.
So how many of you would want to be in an airplane with an engine failure and the pilot needs to get out the manual to know what to do? I don't think there's anybody on this call that would like that. But how much better would it feel if he had successfully completed the engine out exercise 100 times in a simulator? Well, at first, the engine out procedures feel awkward to the pilot, but now he automatically goes through his routine. Our trading simulations may also feel a bit awkward at first. In fact, we're going to do some exercises in a moment that feel awkward to you. And this is why most people go back to what is familiar. The creation of new neural pathways is interpreted as discomfort. But as you understand what is going on, you can experience this sensation not as discomfort, but as pleasure. It's like going to work out at a gym and feeling sore afterwards. You know you're building new physical muscles. At the Mind Muscles Academy, you know you're building new successful trading behaviors. Everything hinges on that moment of decision. Which way are the neural circuits going to fire? And that is why we concentrate on that exact moment in simulations and exercises that create simulations that serve you, or behaviors that serve you better. Okay, you want to pause for a minute? Any questions that are coming up? Or Sean, do you have any comments?
I think seems like that makes sense to everyone. No questions.
Okay. I'm just going to minimize that. All right. Excellent. Okay, so now we're going to move into the workout section. And this is where we experience what we've learned in the warm-up sections and start creating new mind muscles. And in this section, you're going to experience replacing automated behaviors with new intentional behaviors. Now, some of you may be thinking, what does this have to do with trading? And again, I can't overemphasize how important this concept is. You can't improve your profits without improving your trading behaviors. And if improving your trading behaviors is the key, shouldn't we spend some time knowing how to do this? Once you have the feel for this, you can then apply your success to trading behaviors over and over and over again for your entire lifetime. And once you start mastering creating new behaviors, then the process itself becomes easier. Okay, you ready? Well, now you're going to experience interrupting a brain pattern or name. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a series of slides. And I'm going to do this with increasing speeds. And I want you to shout out the color of the letters you see on the screen. And normally when I do this in the live audience, we can't hear each other because I can't unmute everybody. But it's important for this exercise that you shout out as loud as you can your response and as fast as you can. If there's other people in the room, just warn them that you're being a little crazy right now and not to call the police. Okay? So here we go. I want you to shout the color as quickly as you can. Speed is of the essence. Here's the first example. Blue.
Blue.
Right.
Okay.
You got it? So you can shout with me. Okay, Sean?
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. Blue.
Blue.
Red. Yellow.
Yellow. Green. Blue.
Excellent. Orange.
Orange. Blue. This is tricky. Red. Orange. Blue. Green. Red. Blue. Red.
Okay, tell me what you experienced, Sean, and type into the Q&A box what anybody experienced. What was that like?
Oh, we have to do a question. He thinks he may have missed a slide, the one before workout after the pilot.
I missed a slide?
I think, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, it was interesting. Your brain is telling you one thing, but it's kind of misleading.
Well, what happens is we have been taught all our lives to read the word. So when we see, in fact, let me just put it on the screen. So when we see this word, R-E-D, our brain is automated to read the word red. I mean, we see it red. The color doesn't matter. We've never read the color of the letters before. So when we look at this, our name says red. And in a group of people, this is a lot of fun because everyone reads this and goes, red. And then some people say, blue. And then as we get on, people get better and better, but they have to very consciously and intentionally stop the automated name, the automated behavior, and read and say the color of the letters. So it's very important that you understand what it feels like to interrupt an automated process, because when you get excited and you are going to remove a stop just as the price gets down to it, you're going to need to interrupt this well-established behavior, and you need to know what it feels like. Okay? And some of you may have noticed even how good it feels to be able to, did anybody out there feel, wow, by the end of this sample, I really got it and I was able to shout the color of the letters, the color rather than the name? Does anybody out there get that feeling?
I think people have found that it, kind of got easier as they went through it.
Right. And I want you to, go ahead.
That's it. I mean, just, it's a weird feeling though.
It is. But I want you to notice how good it feels to interrupt an old pattern and start to replace it with a new one and do it intentionally. Okay. Questions or comments? How was that exercise? Anything that, Sean, you want to bring up, or anything that we should pause here for a moment?
People are saying that it's like a feeling of accomplishment. I don't see any questions.
Okay, great. It is a feeling of accomplishment, and that's exactly the start of the Mind Muscles lessons. We want you to feel that sense of pride, of delight, that feels so good when you create a new behavior that serves you better. Okay, now we're going to create some new neural patterns or mind muscles. And just like these new neurons you're watching as they connect and disconnect, demonstrating neural plasticity, you're now going to experience what you see in this time-lapse video. You're going to have the experience of what your neurons are actually doing. So last time we interrupted old patterns. Now we're going to create some new ones. So I want you to take out a sheet of paper, or if you don't have a sheet of paper, that's fine. Just have your finger pretending it's a pencil on your desk. And I want you to move the pen or pencil from your normal writing hand, which is for most people their right hand, to your left hand. I'm left-handed, so I'll move it to my right hand. And so again, if you don't have a pencil handy or paper, I know my kids don't have paper in the house anymore. You can't find a pen and paper to save your life. So just use your finger, and I want you to write these words: making mind muscles. Just write it with your non-writing hand, making mind muscles. And when you're done doing this, type into the chat box what this experience was like.
Well, I think I actually did have a pen. It would probably be pretty illegible.
Yes. Making mind muscles, and then type into the chat box what that feels like.
People are saying it awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say it's kind of easy. It was slow.
Slow.
Looks like a 3-year-old wrote it. Yeah, that's takes longer to write. Difficult.
Yes. Okay, so what you're doing here is you are creating new neural connections where they have not been before. Now, if you, in fact, you went on and let's say you broke your writing hand, and it was in a cast for several months, you'd be writing with a wrong hand just fine after you built the brand new connections. So this is what we want to do at the Mind Muscles Academy, is to create new neural connections by repetitive behaviors that feel better and get you to your goals. Okay, any other comments, Sean?
Nothing yet.
Okay. All right, we're good on time. So if you have any comments, feel free to ask, because that's where the real value is.
Okay.
All right. So the process in mind muscles training, as I mentioned, is to locate the moment of neural decisions, interrupt the reactions that no longer serve us in order to create positive upward spiral of new behaviors that feel better in the moment, support our values, and get us to our goals. Remember, you can only change your behavior in the moment. Now, I've tried going back in time to change a behavior that I regretted. And Sean, let me tell you, it's really difficult. The expense of renting a time machine these days is just out of sight. And I've also tried to go into the future in order to make a decision that will serve me better, only I want to make the decision now for in the future, and that's just as hard. But it turns out that we can make decisions now in the moment. And so this is what we do. You can see on the screen, we make an intervention point right at that moment of decision when we're about to make that impulse trade.
Interesting. Okay.
So let's understand how these reactions work in our brains, and then we can interrupt the brain process that produces the repeated errors. Now, amazing as it seems, about 80% of all professional and independent traders I coach personally, when they have a persistent trading response, it'll come back to beliefs about the world they created when they were younger. This applies to billion-dollar hedge fund managers as well as the newbie day trader. Now, I didn't fully believe this myself 10 years ago until I saw this happening over and over again. Persistent trading behaviors are names that usually were created when we were much younger. And these powerful names trigger repeated behavioral responses. So now what everybody wants to know, okay, Rich, okay, so how can we avoid the triggers of revenge, boredom, compulsion to trade, impulse trading, greed, and fear? In my coaching sessions with traders, when we work on a specific behavioral change, here is a typical path. When the market creates a trigger that normally elicits behavior that no longer serves us, we now have available two experiences. We have the original meme and the new experience, and we can play with which one feels better in the moment. Again, change only happens when it feels better in the moment. So what we do is we understand the present state, so get a real good feeling for it. We clarify the desired state and step into it so that that desired state feels better. And then we find out what stops you from going. And oftentimes there are what we call ecology reasons and a lot of beliefs that actually stop us and sabotage ourselves. We locate a physical sensation around what stops us. We determine the sensation's origin. We experience a preferred response instead. We apply that to the past experiences, and that helps bring us out of the stuck position. So, this is a process that I have used with traders over and over again, and in a short period of time can make some really dramatic changes. So, questions or comments? Okay.
We're good.
We're good. Okay, so as I mentioned, there are three sections, and this is the win in the world in the final section. And let's look at what we have learned today so that you can take it to your real world trading. So what can you do to change persistent trading behaviors that no longer serve you? What can you take away from this webinar that you can do on your own? Well, first, self-awareness is the foundation for creating new behaviors that serve you better. There are many mindfulness and self-awareness training programs available that can be helpful. However, you can just set an alarm that goes off every 30 minutes as you trade, and then journal your sensations in your body, your emotions, and the quality of your thoughts. It can be that simple. I have full instructions for this exercise on a special webpage for Jigsaw members, and I'll give that link to you at the end of the webinar. So here's a description of the exercise just briefly. If you set an alarm for every 10 minutes or 30 minutes or whatever, when it goes off, first, note your sensations, your breathing, muscle tensions, energy level, and so forth. If you're sick and in a lot of pain and injured, you might score yourself a -5. If, on the other hand, you're twitchy, have rapid eye movements, can't focus or settle, then we would score you at a +5. And at 0, we're well-fed, exercised, our bodies are prime, our muscles are relaxed and powerful. Our heart rate is slow and steady, our blood pressure is low, our breathing is deep and relaxed, and our brain is well oxygenized. Now, then we repeat the same thing for our emotions and feelings. If, for example, you were severely depressed, self-loathing, feeling worthless, and just wanted to curl up and die, then you'd score yourself a -5. If on the underside of the scale, you were cocky, if you felt like Superman, you see the world is in your control, you believe you can predict the market activity, and you're eager to grab every trade and not miss out, then you can score yourself a +5. At 0, you're curious, and you're open to whatever the market gives you. You have no need to trade or not trade. You have a quiet confidence in your ability to see the market as it is with few biases. Then you move on to thoughts. If you have a loud critical voice in your heads and if you're punishing yourself with thoughts of inadequacy, then score yourself a -5. On the other side, if our thoughts are belligerent, strong, demanding action, angry at the markets or the world, then we can score ourselves a +5. At 0, our thoughts are in the flow of the market. Occasionally a negative thought passes through our mind. We notice it and just let it go. So what we do is we add up all these 3 scores, we divide by 3, and that gives us our net set score. So what you can do with this, in fact, I tried this out with some of my trading advisors. These are active, successful traders who test things for me. And what they noticed is that their set score correlated with their P&L. And so they started using it as an indicator. So when their set score gets too low, they stop trading or they change those items that are making the score so low.
So on a perfect day, you'd be all zeros. And
right.
Okay.
Now, the important thing here is to, and this is the hard part of this. In fact, this is one of the downsides of this exercise, is that we get into a competition. And I've had traders I go see, we do their scores, and they say 0, 0, 0, when in fact I see them as a +4, +3, and a +4. So you don't want it to be a competition that you're trying to win against other traders. You don't want to see 0 as perfect. The important thing here, and I'm so glad you brought this up, Sean, is that we allow whatever to be, that it's okay to be a -5. It's okay to be a +5. It's okay to be there. The most important thing there is to be aware of it and accept it. Because if we're trying to fool yourself or trying to change the number so that we have a better score, that just impedes your trading further.
And what about just individual differences in people? I mean, I know some people are just tend to be more cocky than others, or maybe just tend to be more fidgety or things like that. I mean, how does this scale account for that?
Well, the good news is that you can calibrate it yourself. Now, I know people, I have a sister who is ranges anywhere from a -5 to a +5 in any given 10 minutes. I mean, you know, her scores are almost always -4, -5, and +4, not with 5 with not much in the middle. And I know other people who a -1 is really a significant score, and a +1 is really a significant deviation. So the good news is that you can kind of score yourself. So you might look at your own personal extremes, which might not be as big as some other people's, and score yourself a +5 or -5. And that +5 or -5, for a -5 for somebody might mean they're just a little sad, and a -5 for somebody else means they're ready to pull the trigger and off themselves. So the good news is you can calibrate it yourself, and if you do this over a long period of time, you'll start to see patterns, just like you see in stock charts or your trading charts.
Rich, we have one question. Mike is asking if you find that meditation techniques can help facilitate the adoption of new neural patterns.
Oh yeah, and meditation is all about creating new neural patterns. I'm not a really big meditator myself, but what I'll do sometimes is just sit back and breathe deeply, close my eyes, slow my heart rate down. I can lower my blood pressure by 20 points in about 3 minutes simply by the breathing deep. And especially the slow breathing, if you can, and in fact, I'll just interrupt this for a minute and I'll give you, if you can do this exercise, breathe in on the count of 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold it for a count of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale on a count of 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Leave your lungs empty for a count of 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can do this. What this does is it tells the amygdala, the fight or flight part of our brain, that there's no danger because we're breathing slow and easy. At the bottom, we have no need to breathe in suddenly because we are well in control and we're well oxygenated. In fact, when I did combat training for a week in Colorado, we did exercises that I can tell you they scared you know it's a simulation. You know you're not going to die, but imagine being blindfolded, spread out on the floor, spread eagle, blindfolded, and say 2 guys are going to hit you hard in the next 15 minutes and you don't know when.
That's not fun.
Okay, breathe slowly, because what happens is we go into fight or flight, and in trading we do the same thing. So
this actually brings us up to another question that was asked, which I think it relates pretty well. Is can you recommend like a biofeedback device that people could use to monitor themselves?
you know, this is really interesting because biofeedback devices are becoming cheaper and easier, and programming them is better. I've got it on my to-do list to start investigating. I got a list about 5 or 6 of them. And now even webcams can determine your breathing rate. They're really getting sensitive. So there's, and I think, in fact, there's I got some patents I'm thinking about creating around this area, because I think this is a very valuable part, but it's something I just haven't gotten around to yet. So if you see something, or if anybody out there sees something of interest that might relate, please just send me an email.
Okay.
All right. So the question is, how do we get to where we're going? Well, no serious athlete gets to the top of their game by themselves, and we all use coaches. In fact, I use a business coach for myself, and I'm going to go see him tonight, because as I accomplish more and more with the Academy and Mind Muscles for Traders, I get out of my comfort zone. And my coach is great because he believes in me more than I do. And as a result, I'm able to adopt his beliefs about me. Now, you can always go on your own and progress to consistent profits. So I want to leave you with some positive exercises that can add value to your trading. And just like writing with your wrong hand, self-coaching will allow you to experience the discomfort and know that it is part of the path, which allows you to feel good about it. So when you're in a persistent behavior, it can be trading or picking your nose, you can do this exercise. So first, slow down time at the moment of decision. When my hand reaches for that refrigerator door to get, or that freezer door to get the ice cream, it now feels like it's in slow motion. Next, I become aware of my physical sensations and my feelings and thoughts. Am I reaching for that ice cream just because I'm anxious? Am I breathing deeply? Am I worried about something? Next, let it be okay. Now, I'm not judging myself for it. I'm saying, wow, this is fascinating. And let it be okay to continue the behavior without judgment. Now, this is the most important step. We want to stop the cycle of failure and judgment, because when we judge ourselves, we just repeat the cycle over and over again. So the next step is to accept what you're doing and be curious about it. Say out loud, wow, this is interesting. So as I reach my hand for the freezer and that ice cream, I say, wow, this is interesting. This allows you to actually notice what is going on. So if you just happen to notice yourself making a decision that serves you better without forcing it, you can do what, you can create an anchor for yourself. And one of them is called the mind muscle motion, where you clasp your hands together, you move them up and down, you say, making mind muscles. Yes, my hand was reaching for that freezer door. I was just about to click that mouse for a revenge trade. I was just about to delete the stop. I slowed it down, and I'm finding that I don't want to do it, that it feels better not to. Now, only do this not when you're disciplining or forcing yourself, but only do the mind muscles motion when in that moment it feels better. And this is really important. Only anchor and only reward yourself if it feels better in the moment. So making mind muscles. In fact, am I on the video? Yeah, you can. I think you guys can see me. Making mind muscles. Okay, and that's it. And if you can do that, if you can shift your moving from the 2-story nut house where you're trying to force yourself to new behaviors to this process of slowing yourself down, being aware of it and accepting what's going on, saying, wow, this is interesting, and then organically, when something changes, reward yourself with an anchor like making mind muscles. That's it. That is huge. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, moving on then. Okay, the precepts for change are: we can only change in the present moment, so let's focus on that moment. Change only happens in the moment when the new behaviors feel better than the old ones they replace. Nobody chooses a new behavior that feels worse than the existing behavior. Even the most horrific choices are better than the alternatives.
Sorry, one question.
Yep.
So is this like EFT? I'm not sure what EFT is.
Yeah, that's a tapping mechanism that is used to break old patterns. And I haven't really done a lot of it myself, but some of my clients claim that it really has made a difference in the self. So yes. Well,
emotional freedom technique. Okay.
Yes. And what we're going to notice is as all these different models of behavioral change work more realistic with neural activity, we're all tending to move toward the same direction in terms of our therapeutic models. And this is because we are attaching ourselves more and more to how the brain really works rather than some of the models of the brain works that we grow up with.
Okay.
And remember, you can't force yourself into a new behavior that feels worse in the moment than the one that it's replacing. So if I have a client and I give them an exercise and after it they pause and say, oh, that feels better, then I know we have the first step to lasting change. Okay, so if you need extra support for breaking a bad habit response or a bad behavior, well, what we do at the Mind Muscles Academy is our mirror-to-peer program. And what this does is, much like EFT, we create break states that get in between the impulse and the reaction. This program is available in our current Mind Muscles for Traders Bootcamp program. We've just started the fall version in September. The next one is in January, and this is included in the bootcamp program for no fee. So how does this work? How does the mirror-to-peer program help solve the problem of creating new behaviors in the heat of the battle when our primitive brain has taken over our behaviors with survival mechanisms? Well, what we do is we create a structure. Did I skip a slide? No, I didn't. Okay. We create a structure that supports real-time awareness while trading decision is being made. So what you'll see here in just a second is we change what we measure. Now you can do this for yourself starting today. Make a list of the issues that stop you from the success you want. Then on the opposite side, make a list of the positive states of mind that support your goals. Then place a red, yellow, or green square in each trading period. And now share this with a trading buddy so that you know somebody is watching. We also have additional metrics that move us from measuring our success on winning or losing trades to the quality of our execution, but that's a whole another webinar in and of itself. But I want you to notice, if you do this, how good it feels to turn your red squares into green squares. So what we have now is there are some resources I mentioned. So if you go to this link, mindmusclesfortraders.com/web4. I can't, oh, well, I've got the slideshow open. I can't put it into the chat box. You can go there and you will see some additional, you'll see the set scored instructions, and you'll see some other things that I've mentioned in this webinar that you can take advantage of. And all this you can do on your own. The truth is that you are the final arbiter of what is right and what is good and what is best for you. And as a result, you're the one who can make the changes that make a difference. The advantage of coaches or additional training programs or meditation or EFT or whatever it is you choose, is that it helps you create break states so you don't just keep repeating the same patterns. In fact, when we're in those same patterns, it's hard to know we're in the patterns. And that's why having a coach is sometimes helpful. Okay, so with that, is there any additional questions, Sean? Or if there's anything we can discuss, I'm happy to stay here and answer questions for a while. Or just, I know we've had some interesting conversations, so I'm willing to continue the conversation.
Yeah, let's see what comes in. It is interesting, though. I mean, I think that this would allow people to definitely change, their habits and get some results by themselves. Here we go. What is your opinion about changing our language, for example, from the word loss to the word business expense?
Well, that's a really good example of creating a break state, because loss triggers so many names in our brain. In fact, when we were hunting on the savannas, a loss of game could mean starvation or going hungry that night. So loss, we know, triggers twice as much pain as the same amount of gain. In other words, if you lose $5, that the pain the normal brain experiences is twice as great as the joy you experience in gaining $5. So what we do is we reframe losses, and that is one excellent thing you can just do by yourself. We call our trades that are executed according to your strategy, we call them lucrative trades. And it doesn't matter if they make money or lose money. Our job is to execute as many lucrative trades as we can. Is it the right market condition? Is the setup correct? Did we wait for the right time? Did all our indicators line up? Did we execute the trade promptly? Did we put in our stop? Did we let it exit at our target goal? And if we did all that, it's a lucrative trade. For example, if you have a strategy where 50% of the trades are winners, 50% are losers, and you win twice as much as you lose, well, that means, let's say you make a 100, you put on a bet where you're going to make 100 and lose 50, and you win one trade. So that means that you won 100. You put on the second trade and you lost 50. So that means the net amount of money that you made for those two trades was $50. So if we divide it by the two trades, that means it's $25. If you have a strategy that's that consistent, that means every time you put it on, if you think about making $25 and not worrying whether that specific trade won or lost money, you can get out of that. Now, Sean, I have a whole webinar on loss. In fact, we have a whole lesson on loss. We spend a lot of time here because that question is so important that we reframe how we look at loss as traders.
Interesting. Another question here. If there's any recent case studies you have where these techniques resulted in meaningful positive change in a trader's performance?
Yes. In fact, in the boot camp, I showed you, in fact, let's see if I can go back to that slide. If you look at this slide here, this is fairly typical. All my traders in the boot camp keep, what we do is we work very carefully on the behaviors that no longer serve them on the left. We look at the behaviors that they want and the state of mind they want on the right, and we measure these. It's hard to get measurements in this arena because there's so many variables, but starting to improve these metrics with time because we change what we measure. And if we don't measure it, then we may just be fooling ourselves that we're just going into psychological, or to be just enjoying the joy of studying ourselves without actually creating the behavioral changes.
Okay. I know something that I've heard that maybe you can confirm. In the same way that like you're slowing down your breathing can kind of help slow your mind down and make more rational decisions. I've also heard that things like chewing gum or something is another way of tricking the brain into basically like turning that fight or flight response off. Is that true, or is that an old wives' tale?
No, I haven't heard that, but it's certainly worth a try. Because, if you're chewing gum, let's say slowly, what the physiology is saying, there's no danger. Because let's say, I was walking in the woods and I saw a rattlesnake. Do you think I would continue chewing my gum slowly?
Yeah, good
No,
point.
I wouldn't. So just like deep breathing, in fact, we can go into this in a minute. If we look at PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, what happens there is that somebody who's been really stressed for a long period of time is that they will come to a situation, let's say they hear a large bang. It'll trigger the stress response. Adrenaline is dumped into their body. They start to breathe fast. Their heart rate goes up. And normally what happens is that the limbic system, which is in charge of all this, will then because it is so fast. I mean, if I said boo suddenly and you've had that startle reflex, you know that it's just microseconds. It doesn't take any time at all. Our conscious brain can't even think of it that fast. So our limbic system is made to react really fast. So it beats the conscious brain. So sometimes we wonder, why did I do that? I know better than that. Well, that's because our limbic brain has hijacked our neocortex, our conscious thinking part of our brain. So I just lost my thought. What was the question again?
It's about
chewing gum.
Yeah, and shutting off the kind of the fight or flight response.
Right. So what happened? And I was on PTSD. So what happens is that our limbic system, after it initiates this, it will then check with the conscious brain and say, okay, is there still something to worry about? So normally the conscious brain looks around, says, nope, nothing to worry about. It's just a car backfires, a false alarm. And it says, limbic system, you can go back to sleep. And the limbic system says, okay, I'm going back to sleep. But in PTSD, what happens is the brain then looks at the body and says, my God, my heart's beating, I'm breathing fast, my fingers are trembling, there must be something wrong. Yes, limbic system, let's keep up the adrenaline, let's keep up the worry, let's keep up the alertness. So the limbic system pumps it up more, and then it checks with the brain and says, the neocortex, and says, oh, is something still wrong? Do we still have to be afraid? And the thinking part of the brain says, oh my God, we got more adrenaline, we're even more stressed, there must be something wrong. Oh my God, yes, keep it up. And so we go into this loop that eventually leads to hallucinations and all sorts of odd behaviors. So anything at all in your body that reflects non-fight or flight behavior can help bring that cycle. And again, breathing is my favorite.
We have another question here. How do you deal with greed?
Okay. Greed, like gambling, like drug, alcohol, smoking, sexual addictions, is where we are trying to fill an emptiness in our heart with something that won't fit. So what happens is we want the next car, we want the bigger house, we want the bigger TV, we want to make the next trade that's going to make us rich in an attempt to fill something that is empty inside of ourselves. And so as a result, it can't do that. So as a result, we keep trying harder, trying to keep filling with more. So we get this immediate high when we get something. And then as soon as we've had it for a while, it goes off and we keep trying to do it again. So greed is also akin to some of our dreams and our hopes and desires. And we think that it will fill some of those, and we end up empty time and time again. So one of the biggest things we can do as traders is to look and see what we really need in terms of our own emotional life, our physical life, our intellectual life, and solve those things on their own, in and of themselves. So when we come to trading, we don't have this big offset that needs to be filled.
So that'd be an example of something where you would set like a break, I think as you call them.
Yeah, a state break, right.
Okay.
Break state, yeah.
Makes sense.
But a break state, when you have an empty hole in your heart, A break state might help you back from the precipice, but that drive to get it filled will still be there. And most of the time, in my experience with traders, when they have this offset, when they're trying to fill holes in their heart with trading, is that it's very challenging for them to say, okay, I'm going to take a look at what is really going on. And that's where coaching is really helpful, because in a safe environment, we can start to look and see what is really happening here, what is really going on, so that we can start to deal with the problem as it is, rather than the symptom that we've created.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, one more just came in. How do we deal with gambling profits away after a good run? That's a very good question.
Well, that is such a good question. It's a story, if you have a minute. When I was building my own trading firm, I had traders that would take our methodology. We just had a rock-solid option trading methodology that just worked day in and day out, just consistently. And I would have some traders that would take it and just start making money, and other traders that would hit a certain amount and stop and hit them out and stop, hit them out and stop. And so I invited my sister, who was a budding hypnotherapist at the time, and in working with them, we found one of them, out of love and devotion to his father, couldn't make more than his dad because it would be disrespectful. And this was all out of awareness. Another one came from a long line of poverty in West Virginia, and all those zeros in his bank account were beyond his identity, and he kept giving it away. So I could go into many stories of traders I've worked with who have a discomfort with success. And one of the things that I do right off the bat with my clients and with the students is have them step into their own success. And some of them are unable to have that visceral experience of success. And if you can't imagine it and feel it, it's very hard for your brain to work in that direction, because it'll be scary. So what we do is that we make money, make money, then we give it all away.
Interesting. Another question. This is actually something I've heard a lot. I'm sure you have too. Trading is a boring job. It's tedious. Sitting at a computer all day. What's a good way, or maybe tips to get motivated and really stay focused?
Okay, so getting motivated, that term is part of the two-story nut house. Get motivated. We need to be motivated. So rather than trying to split ourselves and trying to get motivated, how about we just notice what is interesting to us during the day? Like, for example, it's a quiet trading day. It might break. It might be some opportunities. So it's almost like a meditation. And how can we find pleasure in that meditation? Or let go of the day and just walk away sometimes when it is boring. Now, the problem, of course, is whenever you do that, the markets tend to then give you a dozen opportunities while you're gone. But that needs to be okay too. So in fact, part of the problem with trading on the floors is that we just have immense time would be boring, but we'd fill it by hazing and making other traders' lives miserable. But, you can't do that. So,
Yeah.
It could be you join a group to talk about things. There's all sorts of things you can read. You can work on strategies. If you need to be constantly glued to the screen, you might look at your time frames. What better time frames can you choose? Are there time frames that can allow you to put on a trade and walk away from it? So again, I'd love to explore any of those solutions with you depending on your personality, but I'm always happy to do that. And by the way, if anybody wants to set an appointment with me, I'm happy to have an initial consultation to see if there's anything I can do to help support.
Okay. One last question. They're asking if you could talk a little bit more about discomfort at success. Marcel feels that when his game is coming together, he almost starts to self-sabotage it.
Yeah. So there's an exercise we have a course or a lesson called Making Money, and this is for traders. And what we do is we look at your relationship with money and your need to self-sabotage. A good example is lottery winners, NBA players, football players. When they have more money than they normally would get in a normal economy, is that they give it back. We know that 70% of lottery winners go back to their original net worth in 5 years. 70% of football players, even with millions of dollars of contracts, end up being broke in retirement. This is not atypical. So what happens is that we start making more money beyond what I call our thermostat. And I've got a great story about myself that I don't have time to tell. But I had an internal thermostat that required a nightmare in the middle of the night to shake me out of it. So in our money lesson, we work with, where is your mental thermostat? Where is it that you start to self-sabotage? And then we look at how that protects us. We look at it as a positive thing. And then rather than beating ourselves up or trying to motivate or trying to be disciplined, we try to understand what his positive intent is, and then we can work with it.
Okay. Another question that people are curious if you're still actively trading.
No, when I walked off the floor of the exchange to start an online exchange, in which I did and eventually sold to Hitachi, it was like a bank vault door. It's like when I was trading, my kids remind me of this occasionally. We were on top of a mountain in the Sierras, and the markets were very active, and I promised my family I'd go on vacation. So here I am climbing the top of this mountain to overlook the Central Valley to see if I could get cell signal. And this was when cell phones still were huge and weighed a ton. Yeah. And I'm screaming into the cell phone to try to understand if we were at risk or what our situation was. And the kids were so embarrassed. I'm overlooking this beautiful valley, and here's Dad screaming into the phone. So it was like everything. I lived it. I breathed it. And there are a lot of traders, when they were able to walk off the floor, they're able to trade part-time. But I find that I just could not do it. It's like it's all or nothing.
All or nothing. Yeah.
Right. And the other thing is, I am so involved right now in doing a very difficult task, and that's creating a behavioral change with online courses. Now, this is a really hard thing to do because we know how hard it is to create behavioral change, even for the better. So I want to really leverage what I've learned in trading, and I want to leverage my psychological models so that a lot of people can benefit from it. And I'm working 14 hours a day in it, and that's all I'm eating, living, and breathing. Fortunately, the kids are old enough now that they're on their own. Yeah. And my wife has learned to tolerate it.
Well, thank you so much, Richard. I'm just getting a lot of comments right now just saying how people found this really, really helpful and thanking you. So
okay.
Thank you so much for the insight.
Well, thank you, and love to do it again sometime, and I look forward to working with you in the near future.
Absolutely. Talk to you soon, Richard.
Bye-bye.
Bye.